Well, welcome to Exceptional TV. This week we have something a little bit different for you. I'm here live in the studio, and actually just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, our leadership lab had an intensive. And what that meant is we spent 3 full days together going into all kinds of elements about negotiations. Some of the components were about how we deal with challenging moments in life when things go sideways. And that can be, things can go sideways because relationships get difficult. Sometimes it's because even traumatic events happen in our lives. We lose those that we love. We encounter really difficult issues at work or just out there in the world. Accidents, all kinds of things can really put us a little bit off our game and unexpectedly. And yet there are ways that we can look at these things, better understand, and also up our game in handling a lot of these things. And sometimes it's as simple as understanding what's going on and that it's okay. That might sound funny, but sometimes we just need to know that even our complex situations, that we have innate capacities to respond even to really, really difficult situations, and many times come back and just simply handle them better when we don't feel like when we get caught because we think we're not doing a good job. And that's just one of the pieces, but there are very definitely things that we can do to better handle almost any situation. And some of these surprising ones, difficult people, difficult moments, difficult circumstances, unexpected trauma and difficulty and challenges, all of these things are the things that oftentimes we're not well prepared for. So this weekend was really a lot about diving into what it really means to lead our lives in those moments and how to lead in relationship to others. But first of all, we were really digging into a lot of this stuff. And the lens for the weekend was really the negotiation lens, looking at how we negotiate or navigate most of those moments more effectively. And actually, just before I came on, I was looking at some information that really went over, and it just pulled up one, I guess it was just really one little piece of information that I guess I hadn't heard it put this way. And it has to do with loneliness. And I guess maybe we're not exactly feeling lonely right at the moment, or you might not be, or I might not be. But I was looking around at some VR. One of the things that I do enjoy doing, VR, virtual reality. And I know that that as a way to engage socially with others is a growing area of interest. And the particular article that I was looking at was talking more in terms of seniors. Not like I've got anything to do with that these days, but it was looking at the issue of loneliness and seniors, but seniors are not the only ones. I was even driving back from a store last night, and I was listening to a young Australian singer. And a lot of her story about during the COVID timeframe, where she spent a lot of time on her own, lonely with just herself, and what that was like and what she went through. So loneliness is not something that is something left up for the elderly only. But the interesting thing about it there is just some statistics. Apparently 43% of seniors feel loneliness is something that they experience on a regular basis. But the interesting thing that I found, interesting fact that I heard, and this has to do more with your physical health and the impact of loneliness on your physical health, is that loneliness, putting it very, it's something that we can all imagine. We like to count, we can somehow better understand things when we put a number to them. That loneliness is more dangerous to our physical health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes. Loneliness has more of an impact on our whole system. And that was in some ways some of the things that we were going over on the weekend as we look at even our decision-making process, how we do make decisions, what's going on as we experience stress and challenge. And it's really coming from the point of view of what our brains do and the cascade of chemicals that go through our brain as we experience different emotions and the like. So looking at it from that kind of internal point of view, not just the internal thoughts and feelings, but even just the biochemistry of our bodies as we experience things like loneliness or things like the challenges or the anxiety of making decisions, or when we don't know what to do in a situation where we feel cornered by a particular conversation, or just facing even the complexity or the difficulty that we feel when we go to ask our boss for a raise, or we are in a discussion and all of a sudden one or the other gets triggered and all of a sudden emotions boil up, and then we find ourselves not knowing what to do, how to get that conversation back on track. So we were dealing with a lot of those kinds of elements over the weekend. And so it was kind of a deep dive and it was an immersive thing. But this was a long way of getting around to the fact that a number of people who were in the program have dealt with, are in the helping fields and have worked with nonprofits and NGOs for many years of their life, or have worked in, for example, one of our key people in the program has been a chaplain for more than 20 years. She has dealt with inner city hospitals and the crises there, in the emergency rooms, dealing with families, dealing with loss, dealing with unexpected death from accident or violence. Anyway, I think you can imagine when a parent loses a child, when children lose their parents, when you've got gang shootings and you've got then whole communities of people that are not only grieving, but they're grieving angrily, and the violence and the challenges of all of the emotions that flow in those kinds of situations. Anyway, so the point there is that you've got a lot of people who deal with a lot of urgent and challenging situations, ongoing. And that creates a certain stress and strain on the system, on your adrenals, on your body, on your sense of compassion over the years and over the time. And it's not even just that. As we go through life, many times the accumulation of our disappointments, so the accumulation of losses, and how that impacts us as we go through our life. So a lot of these were the topics that we dealt with. But I'm just going to bring it all back to something that was a little bit more positive. And that was where we had Jeff Kelly came in to speak to a lot of the international NGOs or the nonprofits, those who are concerned about fundraising in this new normal. And so he spoke to us about some of those contents, and we got into the conversation, perhaps even a little bit before the good part of the recording was put onto the Zoom, but it was captured on YouTube. And so what we're going to do is just play out the rest of that video. And some of it started as very informal conversations. And then we ended up talking a little bit about the messy parts of getting to success And so that's pretty much where we began. And so Jeffrey was trying to figure out who was in the audience. And in fact, we had an interpreter from Lebanon. We had an internally displaced individual wanting to build a nonprofit in the Netherlands, originally from another country, but stateless, caught in the middle of a situation in the Netherlands. We had others from America. We had others dropping in briefly from countries in Africa. Of course, Americans, we had them from the West Coast and from the East Coast. We had a couple from Vienna in Europe, another from Madeira in one of the Portuguese islands over just off Spain. So we had people from quite literally all over the world joining us for those intensive, those few days, coming and going in their ability to find the time for that. But I just wanted to let you know that those resources are there. They're online. You can go back and you can even look at some of the content that we went through. Now, the reality about the content, it did build over the time. And so some of the stuff they were not all standalone sessions. So it really was a matter of going in from the beginning, building on that knowledge and information. And then we had labs and practice sessions. And that's where the rubber hit the road and people began to really experience, feel that both the challenge and the possibility of the particular approach that we have at really looking at a different emphasis on building relationships, how that, of course, plays out in negotiations, how that plays out in reaffirming powerful relationships, making and building relationships that are meaningful and potent in their capacity to change lives. So that was the focus. And again, just bringing it back to the simple point that I ended up looking at this morning on those articles about loneliness, and just reminding myself that it is basically understood that even more important than our health systems, the forces that are at play in our lives that impact our health are really lived out. The medical care pales in comparison to the impact that our communities and our social life has. And I say that not to diminish at all the essentials of our health programs, but to underscore the importance of our relationships and of getting good at building social relationships. And just because we can talk to one another, just because we can send a text, just because we can send an email, does not mean we do our relationships well. And that was kind of what we were deep diving into over the course of the weekend. And I do encourage you to think about how to be a better relator, a better communicator, a better friend, a better connector, a better networker. And there are many ways to be able to do this. And at the nub of that, there are some core skills that, especially today, our leaders really need. And it's being increasingly recognized that these soft skills really do need to be developed. And that's our focus. But now I'm going to hand it off you're going to see some of the dynamics as Jeff was coming in and just chatting away. And then as he gets into some of the more content-focused elements of understanding what is really going on even in the fundraising process. And I believe that you'll begin to hear, when you hear with that relational kind of mindset, you'll begin to hear that a lot of what he was talking about was the importance of cultivating relationships, communicating with the people that we know are our stakeholders, whether they be our beneficiaries, our donors, our members in nonprofits, in the case may be. In the case of for-profits, it really comes back to really hearing our customers, but also we really need to listen to our own teams and listen to the, and keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the larger world around us. So I hope that as I hand this off to and I pull in to share the screen, the YouTube video on this, I hope that you can enjoy, learn from. Here, this is not, yes, it is about fundraising. Yes, it is about doing it successfully and more effectively. But I do encourage you to hear, because it's not just the technology, you've got to have those things in place to leverage those relationships. But a lot of it will come back to building those relationships with people and finding ways and training yourself and your teams in better communication is really a core skill and a focus that pays itself back. But sometimes it's that, because it's so it's like we're doing it all the time. We're communicating, but not necessarily always communicating very well and in ways that deeply impact those that we relate to and build new levels of trust so that we can move on to new levels of engagement. But anyway, I'm just going to hand it over, so to speak, to Jeff, and hope you enjoy starting with a little bit about the messy road to success that he uncovered, as he had this very interesting, very cute beginning to some of his career and online, but that just shows you a little bit about his history and how the depth of his experience in building relationships and online business at the same time, and that he has done that very effectively. And he loves to now utilize the lessons that he has learned and the experiences that he's had in the tech world to bring all of that knowledge, experience, and expertise, and to offer that to those building their either startups or for-profit or not-for-profit. So let's see what we can find out here. If we can go, and I think we've got, give me one moment as I go in and find where okay, I think we've got it now. And we will go in and take it away, Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Hi there.
You made it back home.
I did. Yeah, I came back late last night from Orlando. Nice easy flight.
I think we've got this issue.
So you went over the storms
again.
Yes, we went around them. If you looked at the path of the airplane, it was very much dodging every step of the way.
Yeah, I guess the winter season's coming on in already.
Yes, very much so. It was pouring down rain and cold in Florida, and then it was pouring down rain and cold in Seattle when I landed. So we're certainly in winter here in the US.
So is it unusual for it to be raining in Seattle?
No, certainly not.
Is that
the misconception about Seattle? We love that everyone believes that Seattle is a very rainy place.
Because it's better than what it is.
but it doesn't rain. The number of rainy days is high, but not the amount of rain we receive. So we have very gray days with a little bit of rain. It could be a month straight. But Chicago gets more rain than Seattle. Chicago just gets it in much shorter periods of time.
I see. Of the two, then maybe we should be measuring some. So what we're going to do then, because we're having some issues with the piping of the sound through the system, I'm just going to end this this live cast right now, and then it will be available both on exceptional.tv and in the app, exceptional app, and also on the Exceptional Show YouTube area later on with the YouTube blended. Thank you very much, and I look forward